I apologize. You thought you were going to get some fun music. The only thing I wrap are Christmas presents. Nailed it or failed it? That's what I thought. You had a good day so far? Yeah? Awesome. We're going to talk about sex. It's about to get a lot better. Okay, here we go. Ba-dum. Hey, I'm so excited about this talk. I'm so pumped about it. So on the Steubenville surveys that everybody fills out every year, the number one topic that everybody wants to hear about are relationships. And you know why? Because you people don't know how to be people. So we're going to talk about how to be people together. We're going to talk about how to love one another, how to be loved by one another, how to be seen, how to be known, how to see and to know the other. That means that we're going to get real. I'm going to share a little bit about the crummy relationships I've had in my life and the good ones. I'm going to share a little bit about the failures that I have had and the successes that I have had. I'm going to talk a little bit about what a relationship should look like, what we strive for, the ideal to which we strive, how we can be good in relationship with other people. Here's the thing, whether you're dating someone currently, whether you are painfully single, and nobody of the opposite gender even knows you exist. There's a dude raising his hand proudly. Proud of you, man. Or somewhere in between that spectrum, even the adults in the room, I think we all have something to gain from this time together. So I need from you two things. The first is complete and total buy-in. I need you to trust me, that I'm not saying something just designed to make you uncomfortable, but hopefully meant to challenge you just a little bit. The second is that I need you to walk into this open-minded. None of us in this room are completely who we are meant to be because we are all works in progress. And so that means that every relationship that we're in, no matter how deeply it may be rooted in Jesus Christ and how much we're striving for holiness together with other people, we can always do better. And that's what this talk is meant to do. It's not meant to condemn. It's not meant to make you feel like complete and total crud. Maybe it will hopefully run you to the confession, which is a good thing. But ultimately, all of us together, this is the third time I've given this talk this summer, every single one of us will hopefully grow. Amen? 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 There's a quote from a saint for whom the university that this school that puts on these conferences is based off of, from St. Francis of Assisi, where he was contemplating the mystery of God one evening, and he said, again and again, Sister talked about it in her women's session, who are you, God, and who am I? And that question is not just from some old saint who threw himself into thorn bushes and hugged lepers and didn't own anything. That's the question that each one of us, every moment of our lives, is ultimately asking. Who are you, God, and who am I? We are searching for truth and our identity. We're searching to understand how we are, what we are, why we are, who we are. So we're seeking. And ultimately, to answer that question, we don't have to go very far. We don't have to read every philosopher that ever put pen to paper, of which there are many. We don't have to necessarily even read every page of Scripture, although you would greatly benefit from that. You don't have to study the catechism line by line and memorize it all. You know how you answer that question? You look to God. You spend just a little bit of time contemplating the Creator. Because without the Creator, we, the creatures, vanish. Without an understanding of the identity of He who made us, you will never know yourself. So let's talk about God. Pretty much the whole thing we do at these conferences. Who is God? Well, first and foremost, God is not a concept. God is not an idea. God is not a figure. God is a person. 3 persons, actually. And it's not just some weird math problem, right? 3 and 1. Catholics don't know how to count. That's not what it is. God is a trinity of persons, triune, Father, Son, and Spirit. And so we can think about each person of the Trinity and ask ourselves, who are you, God, and who am I? God the Father, He's kind of easy, right? He's this nice, kindly old man that looks down upon us and wants to give us a big old hug, right? We get God the Father sometimes. And we even kind of understand God the Son, especially since we consume Him, right? Jesus, the one who came to be with us, born of the Virgin, the man who walked among us and died upon the cross and rose from the dead, the teacher, the rabbi, our brother, who introduces us to the Father. And we sometimes, most of the time, we get the Holy Spirit, right? The powerful dove, the flaming, burning fire, the breath of God. Sadly, I think we relegate the Spirit to a pigeon most of the time, but that's another conversation. Don't look too long, by the way. It'll burn into your brain forever. Haunt your memories. But see, the Trinity, Father, Son, and Spirit are in communion. God is a communion, a community of persons. And you, an intentional, purposeful creature of God, are called for relationship, called to relationship, designed for community. If you are made in God's image and likeness, and God is a communion of persons, you are called to communion with persons, the people around us, the men and women we encounter day by day by day. Not simply because you don't like to be lonely, or because people make you laugh, or because they can do things for you, but because that's how you're made. Who are you, God, and who am I? You, God, are a communion of persons. I, God, am called to community. We're called to be connected. We're called to be bonded. We're called to be in relationship. And we know this about ourselves. I mean, from the very first moments of creation, right? God makes all this beautiful stuff. He makes the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, the rolling hills, the towering trees, the waves crashing in the ocean. And then he forms out of the dust of the ground Adam. And he breathes into Adam the breath of life. And he takes a step back from Adam and he thinks to himself, I can do better. So he makes Eve and he gives them to each other. Adam and Eve are in relationship. Every dude is like, I'm not clapping for that. That was mean. And I just won all the women. See, the thing is, he made them for communion together. And that relationship that they were in the garden pre-fall, that is what each one of us is yearning for. Every time we encounter another person, whether it's a family member, whether it's a companion, a friend, whether it's someone we're attracted to be intimate with, mother to child, husband to wife, friend to friend, teammate to teammate, coach to student, speaker to audience, every single time we encounter another person who is made in the image and likeness of God. So any person ever in the history of the world, any person we encounter and we are drawn to a relationship with them, that relationship that we have with them is an attempt on our part to get back to the garden, where relationships were as they were meant to be. There was no use, there was no selfishness, there was no abuse, there was no attempt on their part before the fall to be anything less than a gift to the other. And we long for that. We hunger for it. We yearn for it. We, each and every one of us, are desperate for community and for relationship. I travel a lot. I travel about 40 events a year talking to people about Jesus. And back in May, I was in Canada, my international business trip. And I was pretty excited. I love going to Canada for two reasons. Canadians are nice. They always leave you a gift in addition to paying you. And they have Tim Hortons. So I'm pretty pumped every time I go to Canada. So it was a twofer of an event. I was in Maple, Ontario at the start, and then I had to drive to Hamilton for this other event. Not Hamilton like Hamilton, but like Hamilton the place. So I do the event in Maple, and I get in my rental car, and I drive the hour and a half to Hamilton. And I got there pretty late at night. It was like 10:30 at night. And the people that were hosting me at this event that was the next day had already gone to the hotel to check me in. Because again, Canadians are nice, and they often leave you presents in your room. So I knew they'd probably left me like a gift bag with like snacks and, fingers crossed, some Timbits. So I was like really excited. So I get to the hotel. I'm just kind of standing there, head down, staring at my phone, millennial. So I'm just like scrolling through Twitter, minding my own business. And there's this Russian family standing in front of me that were in no hurry whatsoever. And they're like talking to the front desk, like trying to find their reservation. And I keep like checking them out. It's like 10:30 at this point. I have a sound check at 7 a.m. I'm exhausted. I'm like factoring, okay, I got to shower. I got to call my husband. I got to these are the things I have to do before I can get to bed. And the man behind the counter sees me standing there. And he goes, are you Catherine? Well, that's my legal name, Catherine. So I say, yeah, that's me. because I knew they'd come to check me in earlier. And for some reason, I just assumed that these Canadians that I've only ever talked to over the internet would know my God-given legal name that I'm only ever called when I'm in trouble. So I said, yes, I'm Catherine. And he hands me a key. He said, great, you're in room 125. So I take my key, and off I go. And I walk down the hall. Again, I'm not really super paying attention to my surroundings. Open up the door, stick the key in the door, open up the door, walk in, head down, still staring at my phone, and I look up, and there is a woman in her underwear on the bed. And I go, I'm so sorry. I think I'm in the wrong room. I run as fast as I can. And I just leave my suitcase in the doorway and just book it back to the front desk. And she comes running out after me and very scantily clad. And she's like, wait, are you my Tinder call? And I went, no. Nope, I am a Catholic speaker. I am married to a man. No. So she walks back into her hotel room. I count to 100. Go back and grab my bag. Walk back up to the counter. Throw the key onto the desk. It's like, I'm Katie. I'm Katie Prejean McGrady. I'm here for the Diocese of Hamilton. They were supposed to check me in earlier. He's like, oh, different Catherine. Sorry about that. Sorry, that's how he said it. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. And he puts it back on the computer and he's like, here's your stuff. He hands it to me. He's like, I think they left a gift bag for you. I was like, correct. No naked people in there, right? I know this is Canada, but we're good, right? And he said, oh, you should be okay. Let me know. Have a good night. I very deliberately am looking around me as I walk to my room. I bang on the door as I put the key in the slot. I walk inside. Nobody's there. I checked the bathroom under the bed, made sure behind the curtains. Immediately call my husband and recount the story. He's like, oh, that's gold. You can totally use that as material. It's like, yeah, but how sad is that, babe? He's like, yeah, it's pretty sad. I don't know a whole lot about Tinder, other than if you have it on your phone, you should delete it now. And yeah, I'm calling you out. If you have Tinder on your phone and you've used it to hook up with another person, there are priests available upstairs. We can chat later. But remember, we're called to stretch. It broke my heart that this Canadian woman was so desperate for connection with another person that she used a hookup app, swipe right, swipe left, to find somebody to spend time with. And left a key at the front desk of a hotel for someone so that she wouldn't feel lonely, so that she could encounter intimacy with the other. And so I hung up the phone with Tommy, and I sat there. And I pulled my rosary out, because Mama Mary and I are tight, and I prayed a rosary for Catherine and the half-naked woman down the hall whose name I do not know, and I hope she never sees a recording of this talk, because that'd be super awkward. But think about that for just a second, y'all. It's how we're made. She was just doing what we all yearn for, to find another, to be seen and to be known, to see and to know. Who are you, God, and who am I? I am somebody that wants to be seen for all that I am. The messy parts, the good parts, the stuff I like about myself, and the stuff that I hate about myself. And I shared last night how I'm super self-conscious about my hair, really am. I think it's a weird color, it's super frizzy. It was falling out for 5 months, because after you have a baby, everything is weird. And then it started coming back, and these little weird crispy curlies up at the top. And it's I don't know what to do with it. I hate it. My husband loves my hair and tells me all the time how he loves it when I wear it down, and he thinks it's the prettiest color in the world. We long to know another person who sees us and loves us for who we are. And we do all these things in our culture consistently, constantly, whether we even realize it or not, where we are attempting to fabricate real human connection, where we try to form these substantial, meaningful relationships with other people, and we try to take shortcuts. Facebook, which apparently is going down the tube on the stock market, but Facebook, we as human beings I've got a graphic to show you. We spend 300 hours uploading stuff onto YouTube. 5 billion videos are watched a day on YouTube. Who has that kind of time, y'all? We want to watch people say things. Somebody like shoved their hand up in the air. Me, all the time. Total subscriber, right? We are desperate to like watch what other people are doing because we want to be connected. Facebook has 2 billion monthly active users. It's a significant portion of the population of the world scrolling through news feeds and reading fake news. 6,000 tweets are sent a second. 200 billion a year, half of them from our president. It's not a political statement, it's just a joke. He tweets a lot. Like, we spend a lot of time typing our thoughts into 140 characters, or they just expanded the number. I mean, we even asked you to send us questions through Twitter because we know it's a way that we can connect with the other person. 96 million photos are shared a day on Instagram. 96 million people are posting, because you're not supposed to post more than once a day. We all know the rules, right? It would take 793 years to watch every single snap made in a single day. If this is depressing you, good, because we need to have a conversation. We yearn for, we are hungry for, we are desperate to be bonded to other people. And so we stare at our screens and we type our thoughts and we shout out into the void, hoping somebody will see us, somebody will hear us, somebody will know us, somebody will love us, desperate for those relationships and those connections because it's how we're made, because it's how God created us. Here's the thing, that stuff's not gonna fulfill you. That stuff's not gonna satisfy you. That stuff is not gonna satisfy the ache within you to know others and to be known by others in authentic, real, godly ways. Social media is not the way to love the other person. It's a way to connect to the other person. But here's the thing. It's a shoddy connection. It's a superficial connection. What we yearn for are authentic, Christ-centered, God-bearing relationships. And we are not satisfied and we are not meant to be anything less than somebody in those relationships. Those relationships are something we've been thinking about, we've been yearning for, we've been looking for since the dawn of time. And when the apostles asked Jesus what they were meant to do in life, he gave them the model: love me and love other people. Love other people well. Love other people in a godly way. Love other people in a self-sacrificing way. Love other people authentically. Love other people honestly. Be present to other people. Love your neighbor. And who's your neighbor? Everyone. When we talk about relationships, we sometimes box it in: guys and girls dating each other, husbands and wives loving each other. The relationships that we are called to are connections with other human beings. That could be your best friend. That could be your teammate. That could be your teacher. That could be the perfect stranger. To love the other with charity. A term and a word that has somehow become option to just dropping money in a basket or writing a check to a nonprofit. But charity, by definition, is the theological virtue by which we love God above all else for his own sake. And we love the neighbor, the person that we encounter, ourselves. We love them as ourselves because they are made in the image and likeness of God. See, here's the thing. It's really incredible. You start to understand who you are, who are you, God, and who am I. You start to understand who you are. You start to see others as God sees them. You start to realize I'm made in God's image and likeness. So is that person that's annoying the fire out of me. So is that person who I love and take delight in. So is that person that I don't even know. I can love them for the sake of the fact that they exist, because that is why God loves me. You know, a few weeks ago, I was flying through the South Bend airport. I do an event every year. And this concept of charis, of charity, was made very clear to me as I was standing in the TSA line, which is purgatory. Right? The concept of charity comes from this word charis, which means dear or expensive or costly. It means you treat the other person as valuable. And it's really easy to not do that because we're here. We're on these little screens. We have headphones on. We're isolated unto ourselves oftentimes when we're surrounded by other people who just want to be seen and known the same way we do. And I'm standing in the TSA line, minding my own business, thinking about the cup of coffee that I'm going to have when I get past security. And it's taken a little while. And I have TSA pre-check, so like it shouldn't be taking that long. Like you don't have to take anything out of your bag. You literally throw your bag up on the conveyor belt and you walk through a metal detector and you're good to go. And I have 15 minutes before my flight is going to start boarding. So like I've mapped it out in my head how like I can go get my cup of coffee and a bagel because I know this airport like the back of my hands. I fly through there 6 times a year. But the line's taking forever. And I like look up and I see the TSA agents are talking to this gentleman. And I hear him say, sir, are these human remains? I'm like, what is going on in front of me? And I look up and I see this gentleman. He was dressed in a 3-piece suit. He had on a fedora. He looked like he walked out of 1925. And he was holding this little bag that had the logo of a funeral home on it. And he said, yeah. He just nodded. And I could tell right away, like every teacher vibe in me like kicked into high gear to know somebody that's wounded. I was like, he is sad. And he said, yeah. And he said, sir, sorry, you have to take the urn out of the bag and we have to put it through the conveyor belt again. And he went, okay. So that they take the urn out of the bag and they bring it back to the front of the line and they send it through the conveyor belt. And he's standing there and he never takes his eyes off the machine. And I hear him go, just please be careful with her. And my heart, I'm a mama, y'all. Oh, my heart broke. And he started to tear up. And like, a little secret about me, I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert like 50 when I travel. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. We're not friends. I'm listening to my music. I'm reading my book. I just want to get home. But I took my headphones off. And I closed my phone. And I reached out and I touched his elbow and I said, sir, just tell me to shove off if this is completely out of line, but would you like to pray right now? And he looked at me and some tears welled up in his eyes and he went, yeah, that'd be good. And so I just put my hand on his shoulder and like all my Steubenville training came into full use. And I went full like, Father God, we ask you today, and just spoke a prayer. Simple, wasn't long, maybe like 30 seconds. And then we ended with a Hail Mary. I don't even know if this dude was Catholic, but I went full Mary on him. And she's always good. And as I finished the prayer and we both opened our eyes, I'm crying, he's crying, the TSA lady is crying. The whole TSA line has stopped, full stop. Nobody's moving through any of the lines. And there's just this hush over the crowd of people standing in the South Bend airport at 5:45 in the morning. And the tension finally breaks when this lady on the other end went, whoo, we just went to church, sister. And we laughed, and he said, thank you so much again. And he walked through, and he grabbed the urn with someone's remains. I don't know who. It could have been his mom, could have been an aunt, could have been a grandma. I don't know who she was. I don't know who he was. I've never seen him again in my entire life. But in that moment, I had no idea who he was. I'm not intimate with this man. I don't know his name. I don't know his family. I don't know his history. I don't know where he went to school. I know he was wearing a 3-piece suit, and somebody in his family died, and he was crying in a TSA line at 5:45 in the morning. But we as human beings who long to see and to know and to be seen and to be known, in that moment, that was a man in the image and likeness of God who I was called to be in relationship with. See, we do not need to have these idealized versions of relationship as two people running through a field holding hands, on the NFP brochures that they pass out at marriage prep. Relationships are, we have a whole other conversation to have about that, but relationships are sometimes super quick, fleeting moments of just being present to the other and treating them as valuable. And sometimes we're called to intentional intimacy with other people, whether friends, classmates, companions, brothers, sisters, boyfriends, girlfriends, family. We are called to intentional relationship, and that looks like something really cool when we do it when it's rooted in charity. Firstly, it's a relationship where we see another as God sees the other, not as them seeing themselves full of mistakes, full of failures, but see them in that delightful way that we talked about last night, that the Father sees us. I had a really rough pregnancy, puking constantly, in and out of the hospital a few different times, felt like a freaking whale. And my husband, oh my gosh, he was a champ, would like respond in a heartbeat. What do you need, babe? He was like the Chris Traeger of pregnancy. Like, what do you need? I will be the coach that you need. And on the day of Rose's birth, when we induced, because I was losing amniotic fluid, so we had to induce to have her so that like things were okay, puked my guts out the whole day, passing out off and on. We thought we were gonna have to do an emergency C-section. And Mr. Awesome Coach here was there for all of it, quoting The Office to keep me laughing, praying Divine Mercy chaplets and rosary in rotation in between Parks and Rec episodes. Like just loving me even in my thinking, I'm failing at this. I'm not doing a good job giving birth to our kid right now. He saw me in that moment as God saw me, somebody doing something remarkable and incredible. When we're in right relationship with people, we see the other as God sees them, which means we're encouraging, we're uplifting, we're honest, but we become a cheerleader of sorts. When we see the other as God sees them, we respect them. We treat them with dignity. We uphold their value. When we see the other person as God sees them, we're then able to be authentic with them. Nobody likes a fake friend. Nobody wants the rubber ducky in comparison to the real thing. When you put up masks and you hide behind walls of your own construction, you're lying. You're lying to yourself and you're lying to another person, and then you cannot be seen and then you cannot see. And when you're lying, you're allowing yourself to live within a lie. You're allowing yourself to be fake. And then you'll be miserable, and then they'll be miserable, and the friendship, the relationship will fail. The best part about a relationship that is rooted in God is when two of you can stand before each other in your mess and your grime and your successes and your joys and see one another completely and be happy with what you see and grow together, authentically sharing who you are. Being who God made you to be and not being afraid to show that to the other person. And when you're authentic with another person and you see them as God sees them, you're able to make an authentic gift of self. You're able to be to them a gift. If a relationship is selfish, where all you see that person as is a collection of body parts to use or as someone to get something from, whether temporary physical pleasure or satisfaction of your emotional needs, that relationship needs to end right now. Come have a conversation with me afterwards. Ladies and gentlemen, we are called to not be selfish in our relationships, but to give completely of who we are. And if we give completely of who we are to the other person, that means that we do not take advantage of them. That does not mean, it means that we do not go too far. It means that we know there are limits and lines to what we do, both physically and emotionally with the other. I'm talking about the big C word, chastity, right? We are called to be pure and to be guiltless and to be free. And here's the thing, freedom doesn't mean doing whatever you want because it feels good. I'm free. Go America. Like, that's not what freedom is. Freedom is the right to choose the good, which means if you are truly free in a God-centered relationship, you are choosing freely the good of them, which means, ladies, you're not emotionally manipulating a guy and keeping him on a hook like a dead fish. And gentlemen, you're not pushing the woman to just go a little bit further because it feels good and nobody's ever going to know and everybody else is doing it. When we call you young people to chastity, we do so because we know it's going to save the world. Because if we are a society and a culture full of pure, guiltless, free Gen Zers, that's a culture and a world I want to raise my rose in. That's a culture and a world of people who know who they are, who knows who they are, and live in that truth. Amen? Amen? Now, here's the other thing. Ladies, I want to talk to you for just a half a second. Gentlemen, give us a moment. Ladies, you are daughters of the King Most High, which means your dignity, your value, your beauty is something precious to be treasured and to be protected. You are called to chastity because you, held up in the eyes of God, are so incredibly significant and important. You have a servant's heart. You have a heart for passion. You have a heart for gift. You have a heart for joy. You have a heart for creativity. Don't muddy that up with inappropriate dress and inappropriate action. You are worth more than leggings as pants. You are worth more than letting a man use you because it makes him feel good. You are a daughter of the King Most High. Gentlemen, you are sons of the King, which does not make you a prince. It makes you a servant. It makes you one who is meant to fight, to be warriors who go out and serve our world. You want to know how to be a man of God? Shut up and listen to the Lord for just a half a second and let him show you what he wants for you, which means you are called to not only protect and defend, but to also protect and defend your heart, to give it first to the Lord and then to look to see where he needs you in this world. When we are becoming people of chastity, guiltless, free, and pure, we see others as God sees them. We give a gift of who we are. We respect the other, which means we pull them up, not tear them down. We ultimately lead them to Jesus. The number one question I get asked all the time is, how did I know my husband was my husband? Was meant to be the person I was supposed to marry. My husband and I were long distance for 15 and a half months. We met on Facebook, it's a long story, I'll tell you another time. We dated long distance for 15 months. And about 3 months into our relationship, not even that long, it might have been like a month, I was having a really crummy day, like terrible day. And he called me. And he said, hey, what's going on? Like, why are you having such a rough day? So I just kind of like unloaded and vented for a few minutes. And like he took it completely. And he said, you know what we should do right now? We should pray together. And I'm like, dude, I don't know you that well. Like, it's the most intimate thing you can do with another person. It's not sex. It's praying. Because you're bearing your heart that you show to God. And the other person gets to hear that, gets to see that. That's why we're scared to raise our hands, because we don't want people to see us reaching out to God. Don't be scared of that. It's beautiful. And he's like, we should pray together. And I was like, no, it's uncomfortable. I don't want to do that. He said, no, we're going to pray together. And he hit the FaceTime button, and all of a sudden we're like looking at each other through a screen 1,000 miles away from each other. And he just started praying. Jesus Christ, I ask you to completely and totally overwhelm Katie with your presence in this moment, and just like spoke this beautiful prayer over me in that moment. I don't know this guy. Like, I mean, we've been talking, that's what you do. Like, I talk to a lot of people, but I was talking to him. Like, we were like, you know, like we're like entering into this intimacy together, and like all of a sudden we're doing this incredibly intimate thing. And I knew in that moment, he didn't just care about making sure that I was like, okay. He wanted to make sure that I got to Jesus Christ. A friend who loves a friend, a boyfriend that loves a girlfriend, a husband that loves a wife, a child that loves a parent, and a parent that loves a child, a coach that loves an athlete, a teacher that loves a student, a speaker that loves an audience, wants to get them to Jesus. Wants to show them again and again that we will go out of our way to bring you to the King, because when we are close to the King, we know that we are sons and daughters of the King. We're able to see other people as they're meant to be seen. We're able to respect them, to uphold their dignity and value, to treat them as a gift. We're supposed to do what those friends did, rip open the roof and bring people to Christ, no matter what. And when relationships are rooted in that, they're beautiful. They're life-changing, they're transformative. That's the kind of world that we all want to be part of, because that's how we're made. Who are you, God, and who am I? I'm made for relationship. Not only do we want good relationships for ourselves, we want everyone around us to have good relationships too, because that's the kind of world that we want to live in. That's the kind of place that we want to be. Amen? We're going to bring Chris up on the stage so we can answer some questions. If you have any more, you can tweet them in.
All right. Thank you, Katie.
I think we've got some stools.
We got some stools. Here's what's going to happen. We've gotten a lot of tweets, and we're going to try to go through as many as we can, as fast as we can. We're probably going to go over just a few minutes so that we can get as many in with you. If you still want to send in a question, you can do that now. We're going to put up well, there they are. So if you send them, I'll be reading them. So if you want to send the direct message, then that way it's not public. Somebody has sent a pretty funny tweet already to me that I responded to, and my response to you was, I think you're having a stroke. So, yeah, I'll read them all. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So, Katie, I think what we're going to do is I'll bring it up to you, and then you can kind of field it first, and then we'll go from there, because it's a little bit easier for me to kind of read it and let you respond right away. All right, so here's our first question. How do you set your emotional boundaries within a romantic relationship? Are there specific subjects that should be reserved for engagement marriage?
All right, you want to know the rule?
Do it.
Feet on the floor, clothes on, don't make out for longer than 5 minutes.
5 minutes, that's a long time.
3.5. I'm being simple and I'm being blunt, but really.
Are we talking about?
Intimacy.
Kissing.
No, really, guys. Lead us not into temptation. We say it in the Our Father, and yet we put ourselves in temptation's way all the time. It's super easy to get caught up in the moment and to do something that you regret. And let me just say for a second, if you've done things that you regret, we have the sacrament of confession. You can start fresh. You can start anew. The other thing is, in a relationship, if all you're doing is physical stuff, that relationship is therefore hindered because you're not doing other things that are really important to intimacy, like talking, like spending time together, doing really boring stuff. FYI, sex is the least thing that you will do when you're married. Sorry to disappoint you, but it's true. Like, it's the least important. He's got 9 kids, I've got 1. But anyway, I hope my husband never sees this live stream. But the thing is, physical stuff should not be, I'm turning red, I can feel it. Physical stuff is not or should not be the most important aspect of a relationship. If you have to ask, oh, are we going too far? You've probably gone too far.
Yeah.
Sorry. We're being real.
I can honestly say that I don't even understand this question. Why do guys consider themselves like gushers? Is that bad? Do you know what that means?
We'll Urban Dictionary it later. I
hope.
We're too old to understand that.
I should probably let you read these questions. Here's one. Are high school relationships worth it? I'm going to answer that. If you lived in my house, I would, that would mean I was your father. But here's the thing. I tell my kids that you're not allowed to date until you're 18. You're not allowed to date on your own by yourself until you're 18. And the reason I do that is that there's nowhere to go in that relationship. There's nowhere to go in that relationship. And the thing about it is that dating ultimately is an opportunity to see what would it look like for me to be in a relationship where I learn how to be selfless. But unfortunately, what happens, dating right now is super connected to being selfish. And it's too long of a kind of a thing to go into, but I know what it's like to be dating in high school. I can know and say and see the benefits. I met my wife in high school. We were seniors. So, I mean, I get it. But here's the thing is that I always say to people, the greatest way to mess up what is good in a relationship is to start becoming physically intimate. And that's something that you're going to want the longer you're with someone, love someone, care about something, because it's a natural progression to not just want to give your emotions, but to give your body. So the greatest gift that you can give to each other is to become phenomenal friends, because friendship lasts the entirety of a relationship in a good marriage. And if you don't have a good marriage, it's probably because you have not worked on being a great friend. It's something to think about. Here's the thing. I'm just going to flow through a bunch of these as fast as I can. Some of these are pretty weird. Okay, I like playing video games and working. My girlfriend thinks I do work in games more than I spend time with her. Making the time I do spend with her awkward. When we meet, it's like the air is thicker than a bowl of oatmeal. Not really sure what to do with that. I think God put her in my life for a reason, but I'm not sure. Can you help?
Oh.
Dude, if your video games are more important than the girl, just play video games some more and think about the girl later. Because I don't even know how to say it, but I was not interested in video games when I was dating Linda. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
I think your girlfriend's right. If you've committed to spending time with her, but you're spending more time doing other things, she probably feels insignificant and unimportant. And what we long for in relationships are to be seen and to be known. Well, if you're not spending any time with her, not paying any attention to her, and then it becomes tense because all she wants to do is talk about how you're not spending time together, you two should probably reevaluate why were you drawn to one another in the first place, and try to get back to that place. Then again, we also just said you shouldn't date in high school, so maybe you should just break up and be good friends. But if it's thicker than oatmeal, that's just awkward and uncomfortable. And oatmeal's nasty. So
and who eats oatmeal?
Yeah, old people. And all of the people that just raised their hands.
I literally had oatmeal like yesterday, but moving on.
It looks like bad baby food, y'all.
So here's another question. Can you recommend good theology of the body material for teens? That's an interesting question maybe you should explain real fast theology of the body and if you have any recommendations.
So Pope John Paul the Great, for 5 years, spent every Wednesday talking about the human body and the theology of the body, and how we as human beings in our physical body give view of the invisible reality of the mystery of God's love. 5 years, so there's a lot. You could go buy the big old thick book and put yourself to sleep each night reading it, because it's good stuff, but it's dense stuff. Christopher West has some incredible material. ChastityProject.com is a great website that has awesome resources and books and links to articles that kind of unpack and explain. Here's the thing about theology of the body. JP2 spoke very specifically about what it means to be a human person. It's not just a theology of sex, it's a theology of humanity and of the human person. If you really want to understand humanity and the human person, start by reading the Gospels. Start with the Gospel of Luke. Fall in love with Jesus, and you'll start to understand yourself, and then you'll be drawn deeper into theological texts like TOB.
Okay, how do you stay friends after you break up? You don't. I don't know how, I mean, look at. Really? Do you really want to be friends after you break up? Like, really? I mean, the thing about it is, yeah, let's be nice, be cordial, but it's not going to be the same. It's not. You're not just going to go back to buddies. It's different. That's why you need to be super careful when you start dating someone, because things change. It's going to change the whole dynamic of that relationship. I don't know how to say it any other way. I just don't think you go back to the way things were before that.
I had a friend tell me one time in high school that they made a mistake. She slept with her boyfriend, and then they broke up like a week later because all he wanted was to use her. And then it was over. And she was crying and she was upset, and I was trying to comfort her. And, you know, high schoolers, God love you, but you don't have a prefrontal cortex yet, so everything's the best or the worst. And so it was the worst. And we're in this moment, and she said something that has stuck with me for the rest of my life. She said, "Oh my God, at our 10-year reunion, all he's gonna think about is how he saw me naked." And it broke my heart, because she was right. Because that was the sum of the time that they'd spent together. And I'm not saying that if you're dating somebody, even if you've never slept, like you don't necessarily have to have gone that far for somebody to only remember certain aspects of who you are. And so then it would be very difficult to remain friends, because that's all that they know about you. It's gonna be awkward, probably good to take some distance, probably good to unfollow each other on social media for a little while. There are other people that you can spend time with to heal a little bit of that rift that is there. And healing is necessary, and sometimes time and distance are necessary for healing.
Here's a hard question. I'm glad that you asked it. Thank you for this. And we really need to address it. I'm gay, and I love my faith as well. Putting the two together is always so difficult, especially when it doesn't feel like my family would love and accept who I am. How do you pair together these two things that always seem to contradict each other?
First and foremost, if you are gay, we love you. We are glad you are here. And you are not the sum of your sexuality.
Yep.
Full stop. I think the issue in our culture right now, the huge issue in our culture, is that we identify sexuality as identity. When I introduce myself to you, I don't say, "Hi, my name is Katie, I'm straight." It's not how I do it. But yet, for some reason, people who identify as same-sex attracted, homosexual, they think that that's the thing that has to define them. And so therefore, you can become very boxed in and very isolated within thinking that those attractions and those desires are all that you are. And so it can be a little uncomfortable when the church tells you that you're bigger than that, and you're called to more than that, and you're called to not respond to that, especially when everybody else says, date, get married, and yet somehow you sit isolated in these attractions to people of the same gender, and you feel weird, you feel uncomfortable, you feel like you don't belong. The first thing you need to know is that you are more than your sexuality. The second thing you need to know is that we're very happy that you're here, and we love you for who you are. The third thing that you need to know is that we are called, all of us, to chaste hearts. We are all called to a purity of life. Even married couples are called to times of purity and abstinence. Different people are brought into different challenges and are called to carry different crosses. And I'm convinced that there is a movement within our church right now of men and women who are same-sex attracted, who are going to be incredible saints because they're living chaste lives, who know that they are called to be more than just responding to physical desires.
I think also it's worth mentioning, yep, good. I think it's worth mentioning that for those of you who are in that scenario, that you are not some abnormal person. There are some people who really do have these feelings. It's genuine. They're not being influenced by a whole bunch of people. It's the way they felt their entire life. And for those people, you have to know how much we love you, how much the church loves you, and how there is a place for you, and you do belong. And so there are times that people make the wrong assumption that because you might have a different way of looking at life that somehow you're less than. That's not what we teach at all. So if you want to talk more about that, you can come up and talk to us at any time, whether it's myself, Katie, father, sister, we're all here. We all love you. You're not going to scare us. None of the things that you say or feel are unusual for us. In fact, to be real honest, I had a conversation with one of my kids the other day, and I asked this particular child of mine, I said, it's okay if you're gay. I need you to just let me know because I want you to feel the freedom to be able to share and disclose to me anything that's going on in your life right now. It's really important to me that as a father, I communicate and I hear the heart of my child so that we can journey together. And that's the reality of our faith. We journey together. I'm not pushing you off the path because you don't look at life the same way I do. To be real honest, the older you get, the more you realize that life is pretty messy, and I'm not afraid of your mess. And if I, a flawed person, am not afraid of your mess, I know God's not. And so we can talk about that more if you want. Any advice on how to be happy and not lonely being single?
I jokingly said the words painfully single earlier, because I think sometimes that's what we think about singlehood, that it's a painful time, or that our life does not begin until we're in relationship with another person that we're going to marry someday. The years that you spend as a single person discerning are a time of great freedom, are a time of great joy, are a time where you get to discover parts of yourself that you would not necessarily have time to discover in a relationship when you are paying attention to the other person. And so when you are single and you are intentionally spending that single time, and I think everybody should have to be single their freshman year of college. You should not date when you're a freshman because you have no idea what's going on and you're trying to figure out life. But like when you are single, that's an opportunity and a chance to explore, to be creative, to look for things that bring you joy, to look for different things that you're happy about. My husband, before we met, he was single for about 7.5 months. And my husband is the extrovert of extroverts. And he always talks about how when he was single, for like the first 2 months, he hated it because he felt lonely. And then he said, then I realized it gave me the chance to just go hang out with people in large groups. It gave me the chance to try stand-up for the first time. He went and did stand-up sets for a few months. He played Romeo in a production of Romeo and Juliet because he loves to act. Like he got to do all these things that now as a husband and as a father, he doesn't have time to do because we have dishes to wash and bills to pay and a kid to take care of. So that single time is a chance for you to explore different avenues of creativity. Think of it that way. Don't think of it as, oh, woe is me, my life sucks, nobody cares about me. People care about you. You just got to go find them.
All right, here's another fast. We had to run through these fast. Is it okay to be discerning the religious life while in a relationship? Yes. Yes, it is. It might be the clear call that you're called to priesthood or religious life after spending time with that crazy person dating them.
You should also go talk to sister and father at the meet and greet about that too.
Like I asked one of the sisters, how's your husband? She said, divine.
That's great.
Hey, listen, here's another one real fast. How do I know which relationships are real and fake? Here's the answer I give to every one of these kind of questions. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and read through that and ask yourself this question. Is my guy, is my girl fitting that qualification? Am I fitting those qualifications? Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is gentle. It's self-controlled. Keeps no record of wrongs. If you have that as your criteria for a great relationship, you're going to know which one's real and which one's fake.
Mm-hmm. If they draw you closer to Jesus and they make you a better person, it's a winner.
Yeah. How do you deal with the reality of difficult people, like annoying, mean, cruel, etc., and how do I handle them with kindness?
Look, every part is represented in the body of Christ. And we are all sometimes different parts. And we are all sometimes that difficult person. When you encounter a difficult person, remember that you are probably that at times. And love them for how God loves them. Pray for them. And then if you just need some distance from the person, take some distance. It's not everybody's going to be best friends with everybody. Not everybody's going to love everybody. But don't be mean, don't be biting, don't be gossiping. Don't try to tear them down for the sake of making yourself feel better. When we gossip about other people, you don't get taller. You're just cutting other people down at the knees. So we need to treat the other, even if we don't particularly enjoy the other, as God would treat them.
We're going to answer 2 last questions. We're going to put the Twitter handles up one more time, and you can keep sending questions, and we'll respond to them throughout the rest of the day, as well as for me the next few days I'll answer them as long as you want. We're also going to field any questions that you have at the meet and greet, which we're going to go to right after this. Here's the last 2 questions. How can I make it work, basically, if we're from 2 different religions? I get this question a lot. Same thing with even different denominations. All I'm going to say is this. It's going to be super hard. It's going to be so hard. It's already hard enough to stay married and to have a marriage that thrives when you're of the same faith. It's already difficult enough. I cannot understand and imagine how you can make it if you're at odds when it comes to one of the most important, if not the most important thing in a relationship, which is your relationship with God. Does it happen? Are there good relationships with different denominations and even different religions? Yes, it is. But it is going to be the hardest things ever. Because when you go through crisis moments, you lean hard on your faith. And from experience, I'm telling you right now, I don't know how I could have possibly made it if it weren't for my faith in God. My wife and I, we became Catholic, and we did that together. It was an amazing journey. I can't imagine trying to explain the beauty of the Eucharist, the beauty of a devotion to Mary to someone who doesn't get that. That is such a part of my life. And why would I not want to share that part of my life with the person that I love the most? So when it comes to dating, my advice is, and encouragement is, try your best to align your heart with someone who is seeking holiness and is pursuing God in a way that you understand. Because the truth is, you're going to be with them like Lord willing, right, the rest of your life, if that's meant to be. And I'll let you have this. Basically, how do I work up the confidence, courage to tell my girlfriend's parents about her eating disorder? That's tough.
It is tough because you're probably battling with a betrayal of trust of the person that you care about. The first thing you should do is together as a couple talk about the struggle that exists there. Let her know that you love her. Let her know that you only want what's best for her. I think what you should be encouraging her to do is to go to her family herself and to offer to be there with her, to offer to be there in the moment where she shares this great struggle and to articulate something that's probably weighing heavily upon her. And that is probably a signal of something deeper, a deeper struggle that's there.
Yeah, and I would also encourage you at that moment to encourage them to look into counseling. Let's give a round of applause for Katie, if that's okay. All right.